Come on. There we go. Well, that took forever. I don't know what the deal was there. Okay, we're going to pop out the chat and put it over on this other monitor. And we will grab it and drag it down a little bit. And we will change it to live chat instead of top chat. There we go. I think we got everything. How you doing, folks? Hope you're doing well. It is a dreary, gray, slightly misty day here, but that's okay. I hope you're having a better day weather-wise in your neck of the woods. Lee Sweeney, how you doing? Stoogie, howdy, howdy, howdy. Uber Nerd Lucas, good morning from Chile, Phoenix. I don't know what chili means in Phoenix. You know what I mean? But I hope it's pleasant at least, maybe, as opposed to being too hot. Michael, good morning from Rhode Island. How you doing? Blake, how you doing? Looking forward to the Goblin cast. I mean, it's, we'll talk about the thing a little bit, but I don't think we're going to make the whole thing about goblins. That's, goblins are cool and all, but don't get me wrong. But I like your enthusiasm. Dragonfire, good morning from Quebec. How you doing? Hello, nerds. First live Sunday I've been able to catch in so long. Well, we're glad to have you here, Robin. Let's see here. Good morning, also from Quebec. There you go. Morning from Eastern North Carolina. Trying to crack open the old Grenadier Goblins. Good morning. I mean, that they should work out pretty well. Happy snarly badgery day to you all, indeed. Fungazi, how you doing? Good morning from chilly Washington, D.C. Absolutely. Welcome to Blandvember, and hello from a dreary, rainy Jonesboro in southern Illinois. Yeah, like I said, it's pretty gray and misty here, too, so. Speed paints are drying and the coffee is fresh. Well, that's, I mean, really, honestly, there's not much, that's a pretty good thing right there. Oklahoma, how you doing, BF Bulldog? Gray and depressing Berlin. Looks like the whole planet is gray and depressing, maybe. I don't know. We'll see how that works. I miss Grenadier and Rel Partha. I mean, Rel Partha's still around, aren't they? I swear they are. I could be wrong. I could be thinking of something else. Don't forget to put chat to live chat away from top chat. Yep, did that. It's always fun, isn't it? Hello from Chicago's Uptown. Old World Chaos all morning here. Nice. Chilly upstate New York. Morning from a wet Tinley Park, Illinois, indeed. So does it matter how your regular goblins are armed? Not particularly, no, because they all kind of have the same stats. So yeah, you don't have to, like, in my group, I've got some with spears, some with swords, some with bows, but basically the information about your group of goblins, they have just the stats that they have, and they do what they do. So you don't have to be like, well, this guy's got a bow, so therefore he has a range attack, but this guy doesn't, and that kind of stuff. It's a more simplified kind of party game like that. But yeah, this is my copy that I've printed, and I like it. We're getting to the point, I think, because there's 9 pieces of paper in this one, because it's 36 pages, and I think we may have hit the point where we're like, okay, we shouldn't go much further because it gets difficult actually to kind of fold and staple and all that kind of stuff. It kind of looks like the margins are pretty good, but you can see over here how the margin looks like it's off, but it's not really. It's just that the inside pages are, because there's so many pages stacked up here where the binding is, that these, you're seeing the middle pages sticking out a little bit more, so it kind of makes it look a little off kilter, but it's not. It's technically not. Let's see here. Good morning. Doing well. Working on Blood Angels. Nice. Hi from Italy. How you doing? Cool and sunny in New Jersey. Well, it's sunny in New Jersey. That's good. Morning from cloudy Milwaukee. Looking forward to just announced plastic battleships for Drop Fleet Commander. Cool. Hi from New Jersey. I hope it's sunny there as well. Hello, how you doing? Green Wizard, Motor Breath Jazz, howdy. Morning from Brazil. Thanks for the Space Weirdos endorsement. It's a rad game. It is a rad game. Yes, Casey did great work on it. It's one of my favorites. Let's see here. Hi there from Tampa, Florida. Hope you're doing well. Patrick C. Davis, sorry. Howdy, folks. Good morning from Orlando. Good morning from Lexington, Kentucky. Working on my first Arsenal team. Nice. I have not got a chance to pick up Arsenal yet. Well, Arsenal is a game that is in the most recent issue, I believe, of Blaster magazine. And it's pretty much like you've got like a big 28 millimeter mech and then like some 28 millimeter people, and you play on a small board. I have to sneeze. Excuse me. Yeah. Excuse me. But yeah, and I think I first heard about it at Adepticon, and so I am interested in checking it out. Goblin mode ready to go. Cool. From New York. How you doing? Finally a use for those pin-up twin goddess goblinas. I mean, you could, sure. Good morning, Seth. Good morning from a cool Saskatchewan, the land outside of time. Nice. Good morning from Colorado. Afternoon from chilly, damp Puckle Church, painting some psycho pomps for Moonstone. Nice. Hello from Puerto Rico. How you doing? Morning from 46 degrees Santa Cruz. Gotcha. Columbus, Ohio. Picked up Death Wizards and curious if you plan on making cards for the new minions in the SNARL 26 or 24 issue. I don't think so. I guess that's a good question. We would have to, because the thing is then you would just be a card pack of 24, or sorry, it would just be a card pack of 4 models, 4 cards, and then you'd have to, I mean, like shipping and all that kind of stuff and everything. Like there are people who do produce on drive-through cards, like single cards, but I don't know what the cost is on that, something like that. I mean, we can look into it. Or maybe we even just do just the PDF versions. I'm not sure. That's a good question. I honestly had not thought of it. I rarely ever use cards in any kind of games that I play. So that's why I'm not necessarily the guy who thinks about that. It's usually more of a Vince idea. Good morning from the shores of the Chesapeake Bay. How you doing? Happy Gnome-vember. Oh, wow. Let's see here. New Hampshire, Kent, England. Good morning from Southern Oregon. Gray at the moment, but in Oregon, if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes. Yeah, same here in Wisconsin. Another company owns all the Ral Partha stuff, so you can get new copies of the old minis. Is it Iron Wind or something like that? I think it might be Iron Wind. Going from St. Thomas, Ontario. Love the art on the Great Argle-Bargle. Yes. That is Stephanie Kruger or Krieger. I'm not sure. I know how it's spelled, but I don't know how it's pronounced. But the first name is Stephanie, and she goes by Falling Freely on Twitch. I think it's maybe Falling Freely Art, I think, on Instagram. And yeah, she does amazing work. I was actually watching her on Twitch one day, and normally she's painting miniatures and stuff, but one day she was drawing, and she was drawing like 2 kobolds sitting around a fire, and there was a goblin sneaking up on them. And I was just like, oh, okay, that's who we need for the goblin thing that we're doing, which we didn't even have a good name for it yet at that point yet. So yeah, I reached out to her, and it turns out she lives in Wisconsin. She lives in the same state as I do. So she came to TMX, and I talked to her a little bit about it there back in June. And yeah, she did great work, knocked it out of the park. It's very it's very, how am I trying to say this? Like it's cartoony and kind of cute, but also a bit sinister to some degree. I don't know if I have, because I know that this is some of the photography, and then it's on the cover as well. It's there. There's a bunch of it in this background image as well too. But yeah, if you get it, she did the cover and she did 3 pieces on the inside, which include this piece of the goblins fighting and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's yeah, she did great work. Really, really good. Let's see here. Congratulations on the latest smash from Vince and yourself. Looks like a lot of fun I'm missing out on. Well, you know, it'll always be available. We had our first cold snap last week. Got down to the 70s in the daytime. Oh my goodness. Ironwind Games, I think, is the company that owns Relpartha. That's what I think too. Did we talk about the Argle-Bargle thing yet? I mean, we can talk about it whenever. I just was showing people some of the artwork a little bit there. On vacation in the mountains of North Carolina and burying myself in hobbies. Thanks for the gaming chat, sir. Well, absolutely. Absolutely. It sounds like fun. Got a copy of Snarl. Looking forward to it. We're using some Gretchen to give it a try once I get a few more painted up. Nice. Yeah, absolutely. Morning from Scranton. Looking to use my pile of shame Blood Bowl goblins. There you go. That's a good idea, too. Ironwind Metals does indeed still make and sell classic Relpartha minis. Nice. Philip says, painting Vespid Stingwings. Nice. I still have dozens of the metal Battletech models in my pile of potential. I have whatever I found for years. Nice. Afternoon from sunny South Africa. Well, let's see there. It's sunny. Everyone else it seems to be raining, but there you go. South Africa. Painting my first sister's rhino. Fun to be testing a cream color scheme. I can see that. Yeah, absolutely. Greeting from a crisp and clear Massachusetts. Well, clear, that's good. First time catching the show live. Well, we're glad to have you, Nathan. I hope it does well for you. I hope you enjoy it. Good morning from cloudy Cincinnati. How you doing? Good morning from New Mexico. Congratulations on the new zine. Looking forward to some goblin trickery. Yeah, it was weird yesterday because I didn't have like a big deadline. Generally, just before launch with the zine specifically, it's usually a lot of work, like right up to launch. I have to, with the printed books, like with Death Wizards and, etc. Then I have a deadline that is usually a month before launch of the actual book, roughly. So then that's a big deadline, getting everything done, and then boom. But with this, I literally could have been making changes 20 minutes before the game went live for sale, and it would have been fine because it's PDF. So boom, you don't have to get... With the printed books, they require that you upload everything. It has to go through some sort of processes on their end, some pre-flight and stuff like that. And then you have to order a proof, which then they have to produce and ship to you, and it takes some time, and then you have to sign off on it. It's a whole thing. So I see why a lot of people... like at Wargame Vault, just are like, yeah, I'm just going to do the PDF. You know what I mean? Because it is a lot faster. We would make a printed version of Snarl at Wargame Vault, so that people could order and receive a thing like this, except that we can't because Wargame Vault doesn't do, this is called saddle stitch, where you fold it and then staple and staple. That's called saddle stitch. And they don't do saddle stitch anymore. They only do what's known as perfect bound, which is like a book like this, like Death Wizards. It's got like a squared off edge and it's glued and stuff like that. And that's called perfect bound. So they do that, but they don't do saddle stitch anymore. You know what? I just noticed my iPad is in here and I'm going to just quick plug it in because I need it later. And I know last time I looked, it was near dead. Oh, wrong cord. No, that is the right cord. Why didn't it go bling? It was supposed to go bling. When I say it was near dead, it was very dead. So maybe it'll charge. Let's see here. Goblin trickery. Yep. Ready to pit the Hero Quest goblins versus the Auric Hobgrots. Nice. Morning from gloomy Tennessee. Just finished an alternate army Christmas army. Now to decide on my Argle-Bargle army, warband or whatever. Absolutely. Hi from Bridgend in South Wales. Just finished building a Stargrave crew and shuttle. Nice. Cards as a cheat sheet or gaming aid are fine. Cards as a mechanic like in Malifaux, just skip it. I mean, they're kind of, well, I don't know. I guess I haven't played the newest versions of Malifaux. So in the past, it was always just like, this is all your stats and stuff like that. The game that used the cards as an actual function in the game that I always thought was slightly weird, there was a game out there called Mercs, which was a sci-fi skirmish game. Loved the models, absolutely adored the models. But you actually used the card. There were like notches cut out of it in certain spots, and you used it as a movement template as well as having all your stats and stuff on it. That was a little squirrely. Because then if you wanted to put it in like a sleeve because you wanted to protect it from just, Cheeto dust and gunk and whatnot, well, then it didn't work as the movement thingy anymore. So then they sold like acrylic ones that were basically the exact same shape of the card. But the thing is that when they wanted those cards made, they had to get a special die cut so that when it stamps the card, it was a whole thing. And it's a bummer. So I do miss that game, though. I do. Quick question about Majestic 13. Wife and I love the game, but find the movement of the monsters is insanely high. They can just clear the board in any turn. Is this intended? They are supposed to be highly mobile. They shouldn't just destroy everything on the board. So that may be a thing. I always suggest people go onto the Discord, maybe ask there, and you'll either get somebody else or Vince to be able to answer the question, maybe a little bit about rules and stuff a little bit better. But I do know that the monsters are supposed to be able to move quite a bit in Majestic 13. They are not supposed to be slow or plodding for the most part at all. They generally kind of, go quickly all over wherever they want. Got myself a new Airburst this past week, an Iowata Neo, $125, all in with taxes. Nice. Yeah, I've got a Neo. I use that sometimes too. Good afternoon. Sunlight just arrived in Ireland. Well, there you go. That's pretty cool. I meant the fact that the term is with an I, not with an L, like argy-bargy. So there's a bunch of people in the comments that are like, yeah, you're saying that wrong, except two things. Number one, we looked it up. And the Oxford Dictionary references Argle-Bargle as another form of argy-bargy. Oops, can't spell. Argle-Bargle meaning. So yeah, dictionary, Argle-Bargle. It's a noun, and the second thing says another term for argy-bargy. So that is an actual word. It's, like I said, again, definitions from Oxford Languages. So it's from the Oxford Dictionary. Secondly, the Goblins told us that was the term that they used. So we were like, all right, that's cool. We just put it in there. But yeah, I've had a lot of people saying, hey, you're saying it wrong. And we're like, well, we did some research, and turns out maybe not. And also, like I said, the Goblins told us that we were right. So there's that too. Let's see here. Falling Freely is such a sweetheart. Yes, she's very nice. Very, very nice. VJ Morph, how you doing? Iron Windmills owns the Railparth IP. They also own the minis rights to classic Battletech. Vor the Maelstrom. Man, I haven't thought about that game in forever. Crimson Skies, liked that quite a bit too. Hello from Cloudy Nottingham. Can confirm all the goblins I know definitely use Argle-Bargle as a phrase. See, there you go. Chile, Connecticut picked up 25 gobos from Under the Dice Bits Bin at Arcane Con yesterday. Looking forward to Argle-Bargle. I saw that post on the Discord. Very cool. Finishing the prep for my D&D game in a little bit. Hope you all well. I'll be printing a bunch of goblins soon. Indeed. Yeah. So the goblins that I used are from a company called Dragon Lake Miniatures, I think. I'm 98% sure. And I found them on My Mini Factory. If you go to My Mini Factory and just type in Goblin Rabble, R-A-B-B-L-E, then you'll find the ones that I used. And they work out nice. And but as far as printing, I actually printed some stuff up. I don't have it here. It's all in the basement. I printed some stuff yesterday on my FDM printer. There's a game from... it was the #1 game on Wargame Vault until we launched SNARL websites. And it's called Battlefront Valkyrie, and it's from Fat Dragon Games. Come on. And it's on sale for 40% off for a limited time, FYI. And it's like a spaceship combat game, but it's all 3D printable. So you know, you have like all kinds of these ships that are kind of like the Federation from Star Trek, but not quite. And all these ships that are kind of like the Klingons from Star Trek, but not quite. And, you know, you've got the different sides, starboard and port and all this stuff. And so all the stuff comes with the models. And again, it's all 3D printer stuff, models and tokens and all this crazy jazz. And the thing that's interesting about it is it is FDM optimized. So you could print it with resin if you wanted to, but it will also work with an FDM printer. After I got done printing it, then I went and looked at the instructions, because that's kind of how I roll. And they were like, yeah, you should probably print this with a 0.2 nozzle. And I'm like, I printed it with a 0.4. And they're like, yeah, you should do this and this and this and that stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't do any of that stuff. So I have printed all 10 of the ships now. But they do look kind of printed. There's a lot of sloping that is not great for the, you know, it's definitely. So I might do some test painting on them, or I don't know, maybe because I ordered a much smaller nozzle. I ordered a 0.2, and we'll see how that works. I might go through and try to tweak the settings and do the stuff that they say, because they do have an entire instruction thing that says this is how you do this and blah, blah. So I might give that a try and then see how that works out. But they also give you the artwork to print to stick on the bases. They give you the bases, you know, STLs, the sticks, the asteroids, like every last bit here. Like, again, tokens, all kinds of cool stuff like that. Hashtag not sponsored. It's just the most recent thing that I purchased and downloaded, and I thought it was an interesting concept. And the fact that it's FDM, whatever, I think is pretty cool too. So that's what I printed recently, like literally last night. And it's selling pretty well. It's a platinum seller, so there's only 2 more stops above that. It goes to platinum, to mithril, to adamantine. So, and it's only been out since end of October. You know, like the 21st is when it came out. So, anyway, it's kind of interesting. That being said, we are currently selling better than they are because we're in first place. So I'm just saying. But they are certainly probably making more money. But yeah, it's pretty cool. So if you're into spaceship games, haven't even had a chance to look at the rules yet, but they're not super dense, which I like, you know. But I like the concept of like you buy this game and you print all the parts for it, and also you get the PDF and everything all in one package. It's kind of a neat concept. Let's see here. I have the picture you're talking about hanging on my wall, actually. No kidding. Painting old Battlemaster's tower for some terrain. Nice. Prepping for the N5 edition of Infinity. Nice. Turns out when it's cloudy in the northern hemisphere, it's usually sunny in the southern hemisphere. No kidding. Morning from Soggy St. Paul. I'm blacklining my Necromunda terrain with dioxine purple. I don't know what that is. Has anyone tried the Toy Box 3D printer? I've not even heard of it. No. Maybe somebody else in the chat, though. Greetings from rainy Columbus, listening to live broadcast while suffering from a stomach bug. Oh, that's no fun, DJ Todd P. Harris. I hope that the bug passes soon. That's no fun. Morning from Portland. How you doing? Finally have a Sunday off and can watch one of these live. Nice. Checking in from Detroit. Just want to say a genuine thank you for doing what you do. Well, that's very nice of you. I appreciate it there, Aaron. Thank you for saying that. Also love the use of cards in Wrath of Kings. Yeah, I mean, they were just like an information piece. They weren't like a thing that you use to measure and stuff like that, like in Mercs. But it was a, you know. Picked up Snarl, excited to check out the Rain and Hail extra content, especially. Awesome to see it's still getting some love thanks to Tabletop Minions. Absolutely, I appreciate it. Yeah, the piece for Rain and Hail is like again, it's almost like Oculus Spear in that it's solo co-op, 3-part scenario, and you play them in order, and they sort of tell a story. Also, I'm 98% sure. Whoops, should probably go back to that. 98% sure that Vince snuck in some Star Wars references into the titles. So, you know, of the 3 different stories. I bought Snarl as of this broadcast. Well, thank you. I own Death Wizards. Now need to get Majestic 13 after getting this extra info. I like Majestic 13 a lot. It is probably, of the games that we've done so far, it may be my favorite game, but it is the game that has sold the least. So that's sort of par for the course. I know that the layout makes me happiest, but I had the luxury, thankfully, of being able to work on it for like 2 months. Death Wizards, I had 12 days. So for the next game coming up this spring, that we're already, like, it's done. Well, it's written. it's in playtest and development right now. And then the plan is hopefully by the end of this year for it to go to the editor, the copy editor, whatever, proofreader, etc. And then after that, then go to my wife, who is the second proofreader. Long story short is we want to have it done way early this year. We're still going to have it come out at the normal time. But the problem was that last year there was Adepticon in late March. Then I went to Denmark in mid-April. I don't know if I'm going to Denmark again or not this year again. It hasn't been completely decided yet, but we might. So I got to keep that in mind. And then, because the thing is, we need to send the game to the printing company pretty much May 1st so that we can get it proofed. And even then, we're cutting it close. So the idea is for the game to be completed, minus the cover maybe, but everything internal, everything ready to go, preferably before Adepticon. So in early March, have it nailed down. If we can get the cover done earlier, because the cover artist we're working with, we're trying to give her a little bit more time. But the cover is a separate piece as far as the overall layout. I don't have to I can do that last, so that's fine. But yeah, we want to be way ahead this year. So currently, as far as game design, we are way ahead. So that's good. But Vince does a lot of project management in his work, and so luckily he's able to be like, look, we're going to just start shifting deadlines and things like that, so this doesn't happen again. Because last year was a little tough. So, but that's good. That's good that we're able to plan that and make it work. So I'm happy to see it. So Mercs did get sold, and there was someone working on bringing it back. Yep, I know the guy, Derek Osborne. And it's Derek Osborne, and he's got some partners from Miniature Building Authority. I don't know if it's the company or if it's just some of the guys that own Miniature Building Authority, but I know that they are working on it to some degree. But yeah, I've seen their stuff at different conventions, and I've talked to Oz a couple of times, and I'm hoping they can ship it eventually, but we'll see. Morning from, I thought it said moldy SoCal, and I'm like, well, that's not good, but it's coldy. Coldy SoCal is fine too. Just picked up an Elgu Mars 5 Ultra. Any huge model STLs that have caught your attention? No, I can't say that I have. I'll be perfectly frank with you. I'm currently painting 3 Gargants, Giants, whatever, for Spearhead. I'm doing the Sons of Bahamut Spearhead or whatever, and it's just basically 3 giants. And not the mega Gargants, not those big, super expensive ones, but the old ones that have been around for a long time. Almost 20 years at this point. Those sprues say 2005 on them. I don't like painting stuff that big. It's really hard because I'm used to holding a miniature, right? But the handle and just being able to paint here and But when you got something that's this tall and you're holding on a base with the handle thing and you're like, I can't, how do I, I don't know. I've been doing it on Twitch and I'm looking forward to them being done because they're sort of a pain. So I don't really get into big models as much as it turns out. Let's see here. I'm gonna put this printer through the ringer with something huge. Gotcha. Aren't all words and phrases made up? Technically, yes. One could paint one's goblins in a Highland scheme, Argyle-Bargle. I can't tell you how many times my phone has auto-corrected it to be Argyle-Barge, but yes, I can understand that. Let's see here. Kevin, how you doing? When it comes to Argle-Bargle, I just figured you or Vince are on a fan of the band Cocksparrer and their song Argy Bargy, and I put your own spin on it. I think basically what's happening was this. So for the longest time, the game was referred to as the Great Goblin Gamut, which just didn't quite sit right for me. So if you're going to talk about running the gamut, that's kind of if you do one of those obstacle courses, you could say that's kind of like running the gamut. Usually the term running the gamut means it runs the gamut from this to this, and it's talking about different types of things, from watercolor paints to acrylics or whatever. I don't know. but also running the gamut can be about like trying to get through something or whatever. But that wasn't really what the game was about. But the thing was, it was Great Goblin Gamut, so it was like alliterative, and we were interested in the alliteration. So then we did a lot of like thinking and like messing around with thesaurus and all that kind of stuff and everything, trying to figure out, you know, which way to go. And we came across at some point, we were looking for like synonyms for like argument or battle or fight or whatever. We did come across Argle-Bargle, and I'd heard the term before. I'd never heard the term argy-bargy before, which to me, I feel like argy-bargy is the short version of Argle-Bargle, but I don't know. But nonetheless, we saw it and we're like, it's not exactly alliterative, but it's got G's in it. So it's Great Goblin Argle-Bargle. It just kind of rolled off the tongue. And so that's why we went with it. So there you go. But when I first mentioned it to Sam, I was over at Raven's place when they were playing Necromunda. I first mentioned it to Sam. He was like, because I said Argle-Bargle, he's like, oh, it's like argy-bargy, which, so he knew the term, but I had never heard argy-bargy before. Let's see here. Thanks for all the great videos, games, and fun. Absolutely. I need to get around to testing out my 0.2 nozzle I picked up when I got a new roll of filament for the A1. Yeah, like I said, I just ordered it last night, but 0.2 nozzle. A couple of them, I think, just in case. You don't know. They're relatively inexpensive. They're like, I don't know, 10 or 12 bucks or something like that. And I was like, okay, cool. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. I'm assuming it will take longer to print because it's such a smaller nozzle or whatever. And there's probably some other things I should be paying attention to there too. But I'll figure that out when I get to that point. Coincidentally, bought a bunch of Reaper Bones goblins for my own skirmish game I'm working on. And I have a bunch of 80s and 90s plastic goblins from GW. Nice. Think I'm set? Absolutely. Great Goblin can be an orc? Absolutely. No reason not to. Been watching you for years. Happy to see you live. Love from me and my family in Norway. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Hope you're having a good day in Norway. Joining a bit late, so I'll be start at the beginning. Absolutely. I got a bunch of grots in the orc bin. Nice. Loving the new Snarl zine. Rightfully painting some gits. Nice. Morning from Ottawa with a crisp 3 degrees here. Ooh, it was chilly. Need to get my painting speed up. Assembly slows me down more than expected. Have only just finished building 3 Shermans. Okay, I was going to say Blood Angel. No, Bolt Action. Bolt Action Shermans for tanks for the apocalypse. Just did not jive with those tracks. Did I? Yeah, I think I did the Warlord games ones for those. The tracks are a little squirrely, but they're not. I've had worse. Rhinos, chaos rhinos, regular rhinos, those little tiny bits of track are a little bit more of a pain in the butt. But the plastic Warlord M4 Shermans, the regular medium tank, I think I built 2 or 3 of those, and they're not too bad. The trick is to not go too crazy, I find, with tanks specifically, is to remember that from the factory, they came, basically everything was the same color. They just sprayed them basically green. So you don't need to go through and go, well, I got to paint this thing this color, and oh, this part is this color, and this part, like people do generally with 40K models, like, let's say, again, vehicles and stuff like that for 40K, you go through and you paint all these different parts, all that kind of stuff. I've always been the fan of like, no, it's military. They're going to paint everything the same color. It's just the way it works. So it just makes it faster too. Let's see here. Also, your painting speed has a tendency to go up the more you do it. I just found that to be the case. I made a video a long time ago about how I got to a point where I got better at painting, and then I kind of hit a plateau and wasn't getting any better at painting, but then I got faster. So that's not bad. Finally sitting at my new hobby station and coming to realize I didn't allocate enough room for all the basing bits, tools, etc., hobby uses. There's never enough space. Never enough space. Sneaking in Star Wars references is always acceptable, sure. Thought I was done, but seemed to have breached the tube while reassembling the nose wheel. I thought this would happen, and I failed to find my plastic tire levers. I'm not sure what that's about. Love the new Undead for Death Wizards and Snarl. Thanks for continuing to support your old games. Yeah, absolutely. We don't want to make it a thing where we, like when we launched the first game, when we launched Reign in Hell, literally on the first day, we had people asking us, so when's the first, expansion? And we were like, no, it's done. We don't need to do expansions. It's done. You can play it. It's a lot of fun. You don't, And they're like, oh, so it's a dead game. And we're like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't like what I'm hearing. But it's a thing that GW, I think, is kind of fostered in the industry to some degree, where like you've got to constantly come out with more and more churn so that you know that, you know. And I just patently disagree. You can make a game and put it out there. The only time a game is dead is if you can't buy it anymore and you can't find it anyplace anymore. You know what I mean? Look at Mordheim. Mordheim, you can't buy it anymore, but you can still find it, and people play it all the time, and it's more popular than many games from many companies that put stuff out last week and can't get people to pull the trigger on it. So, you know, it's the same type of deal. And the way we look at it is because we do everything print on demand, so we're working with Wargame Vault, and you either can say, I'd like the PDF, or I'd like the print book and the PDF, because we throw the PDF for free if you buy the print book. It's always available. Like, it's been almost 5 years since we launched. Well, maybe not. 2021 to 2024. I mean, it's 3 years, but it'll be 5 years eventually since we launched Reign in Hell, and that game is still selling and still available. If you wanted to buy it right now, you can go to the website and pick it up. And that's because it's never like out of stock. It's never like, oh geez, well, we bought, you know, we got 5,000 of them made and we finally sold through. And well, now do we need to order another 5,000? Are we going to sell another 5,000? How long are we going to sit on that 5,000? We don't have to think about it. And so we just, you know, that's not the button I wanted. There we go. You know, you just literally come here and you go to Reign in Hell, and the book is still available. Also, so is the Oculus Spear, and you could buy it as a PDF. You could buy it as a print book with a PDF. You know, whatever. And yeah, so there is no such thing as a dead game. Now, we still do enjoy the concept of adding some small things. We don't want to do like big expansions usually or anything like that with a whole bunch of stuff. With you know, where you like, well, you got to have this book, but now you also want to have this book as well. So that's why we do the little things like in Snarl. So you get a little bit of extra this, a little bit of extra that, and that kind of thing. And it works out pretty well, I think. I have to sneeze again, I feel. Let's see here. Majestic 13 was one of my favorites. Nice. I appreciate that. Ahoy. How you doing? With any hobby space, it has the tendency to take over a room it just gets planted in. Oh, yeah. Did you see Ninjon's mini tier video list video? Did you wish him well with his low rating of Battletech, as you are a veteran of... I didn't see his video. I don't think I even saw the thumbnail pop up. When did it go up? On Friday? Mini tier list video. Yeah, I know. I didn't see any of that. Miniature Building Authority has Mercs. It's been there for a couple of years at least. Yeah, and they're, like I said, they're working with this other guy, Derek Osborne, who used to work at Cool Mini. He's one of the guys that wrote Wrath of Kings, I'm 98% sure. Mantic has some pretty fun goblins I think would work for the new game. Yeah, I think I mentioned them. I mentioned them in the video? I think I mentioned them in the video. But yeah, Mantic, you know, GW's got goblins. There's lots and lots of 3D printed stuff. Wargames Atlantic just released some goblins. So Oathmark, which is North Star Military Figures. Yeah. Your games are awesome, man, and they are very inspirational to my own projects. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm glad that you enjoy it. We have a fun time doing it. Let's see here. Mantic goblins from Kings of War are perfect for the Argle-Bargle. Sure. I got Snarl yesterday. Are you going to publish cards for the new minions for death? Someone else just asked that. I don't know. Maybe as a PDF. I don't know if it would be worth it to produce just 4 cards. That being said, you could do it, I think. Websites. You scroll down here to drive through cards. Come on. There we go. You know, there's a lot of like, you know, things where you're like, okay, there's a bunch of cards, but there's also a bunch, like, Like right here. Here you got a fairy rogue token. Come on. And it's 1 card. So, you know, it's an unofficial creature token by Justin Hillgrove. I assume it's probably for Magic the Gathering or something like that. There's a zombie over here. That's kind of fun. It's a fun illustration. Anyway, so yeah, people will do it, but then you either need to buy a whole bunch of them to make it worth your while, because if it might be $1.04, but I bet you the shipping is $3 or $4 or something like that. Depends. I don't know. Maybe it's not, because they can fit it in a smaller envelope or something like that. I'm not sure. But yeah, it is potentially doable. At the very least, we could probably figure out something for PDF version for print your own, maybe. I'm not sure. It's a good question. Again, like I said, literally hadn't thought of it, because I have a tendency never to be like a card guy. Stealing Argyle Barge for a space vessel game. That's a good idea, yeah. Painting big models is one of those things you really don't think about, but it is a totally different skill set. Absolutely, yeah. Argle-Bargle never sounds right to me. I prefer to use the loftier and much more sophisticated term Argle-Bargle. Paint big models all the time? Yeah, I generally don't. Always allow ample and appropriate alliteration. I agree. Waxy's Dargle. I don't know what that means. I particularly enjoyed your video on recycling miniatures. I've been collecting Age of Sigmar Stormcast to use as MCU Asgardian style Anunnaki. Oh, okay, all right. So Marvel Marvel Cinematic Universe. Gotcha. That's cool. Argy-Bargy is a con artist and carnival huckster wanted in 30 states. Wow. Morning from sunny Normal, Illinois. Well, I'm glad to hear it's sunny. Working on some commandos. Nice. Morning from Seattle, looking for Goblin STLs to get on a printer. Have a great day. Absolutely. Like I said, the ones I used from the video, going back to the website again and hitting this button. There we go. The ones I used are made by, I believe it's Dragon's Lake Miniatures on My Mini Factory, and they are called Goblin Rabble. So you can just, so there's Goblin Rabble, there's Goblin Rabble Archers, I think, and then there's also Goblin Rabble like Command, and this guy with the banner is part of that. So I actually technically bought 3 STL sets, and then had my good 3D printer friend Dave print them for me. I need to fix this header. It's too, it's too light, but then if it gets too dark, then it messes with this, and I gotta fix that. But yeah, website's always the last thing that gets done just before launch, and so it was like late on Thursday night, and I was trying to get it all fixed, and we were having a call, me and Vince. So it's mostly fine. Does the job. Good morning from soggy Central Indiana. Argle-Bargle sounds like a pirate term for the old days. I can see that, sure. Worst fitting GW kit I ever built was a scenery kit, the Ophidian Archway. Oh, yeah, that was terrible. I built one of those. Yeah, it doesn't, that's just, yes. Yes. It needed green stuff put it, yeah, because you'd have the walls go together like in a corner, you know, like from if you're looking at them from above, but the walls would like go this way, and it would just be like a huge gap that you could see through. It was like a lot of the terrain, from what I understand, from GW is like their models are all produced in Nottingham, from what I understand, but the terrain has a tendency to be produced in China, and a lot of times it's either super soft detail because they're really like buildings, they usually do really high detail, but there'll be a lot of things sometimes that are supposed to be more like, oh, a crater. Like I've got some GW plastic craters that are absolute trash. They're just like, there's not a sharp edge on anything. Everything, like they spent the least amount of money possible on those molds, and they're just, they're trash. And then Ophidian Archway has okay detail, but yeah, it's super warped, just terrible. So yeah, this is why in general I haven't been buying any terrain from GW in a long time. Although the stuff that came in the Kill Team thingy, not the weird printed MDF stuff, but the stuff that came in the Hive Storm, whatever it's called, in that box, that's decent terrain. That's nice stuff. Kind of like it reminds me of the original 2018 stuff, which was spectacular, and I still use it to this day. There's always space, just got to find it. Currently drywalling my attic, I'm assuming, as opposed to drywalling the Arctic. I don't know if you can do that. For more hobby space. Rex, no, you're not supposed to be on the table. What are you doing? No, you're not supposed to be on the desk. You know you're not supposed to be on the desk. Now you're standing on my glasses. Come on, buddy. Rex, no. Get here. I can't. Hang on a second. I got to move the microphone. There you go. Jeez Louise. He's so solid. He's just a moose. Yeah. You see that squirrel? Mm-hmm. All right. Let's see here. Painting speed is increased too, usually after the 5th hour of painting. Then I want to be done and I don't care how it looks. I mean, I'm talking more in the long term generally, but I understand that too. Yeah. Good afternoon from Germany, making waffles and watching the chat. Nice. Waffles sounds good for sure. Can't believe the Majestic 13 is the least sold. I don't care for rule books usually, but I read the Majestic 13 like 5 times cover to cover. It's just so damn cool. Game slaps too. There's nothing like it. Well, I appreciate that. That's very nice of you to say. I think it's honestly the subject. I think it's because like the first game was, basically fantasy. Second game was sci-fi. Those are both very popular genres. And then the third game was like UFO kind of alien conspiracy theory, X-Files meets XCOM type stuff, which I think is just generally not as popular. Like X-Files was a popular TV show, but it wasn't the most popular, but it's still, but take a look at like Star Trek and how it's still going versus X-Files, which is kind of not, so they tried to restart it maybe 3, 4, or 5 years ago or whatever, and it just didn't quite hit. But nonetheless, I do think it's a lot of fun. Different theaters will have different tanks, so the Apocalypse can be played with Matildas, Panzers, Semovente, Tigers, Churchills. If you use a Panzer, make sure you paint it pink. Sure. I'm looking at the Mercs miniatures, and wow, yeah, the original Mercs miniatures were awesome. Because the artwork is so good. Keith, I can't remember Keith's last name. Keith Lowe. Keith Lowe was the artist, and it was like him and Brian something were like the owners of the company, and Keith's artwork was astounding, and so yeah, it was very, very good, and I think that's a big portion of what sold the game, to be perfectly frank with you. Plus, it was sci-fi skirmish. You always had, see you, bud. You always had 5 models per side. One of those types of games, so that was cool too. But I find in my hobby space, if there's an open flat surface, stuff gets put there slowly, inexorably take. Oh yeah, no, I have no flat surfaces. Correcting the dead game mindset is going to be hella tough. Some folks don't understand that these games are toolboxes to create your own content with. They expect to be sold provided them. And again, that's why we don't do, like, I think a lot of people initially thought when we launched Reign in Hell that was going to be the cart or the horse we were going to hitch our cart to in that situation. And like, this is our new ecosystem. And we were going to like, this is part of the, Reign in Hell cinematic universe and all that stuff. And we were like, no, dog, we're working on a new game now for next year. And then another game for next year and another game for next year, because we want these to be like, we want our games to be like, I don't know, I can't think of a great, analogy, like maybe novels, where you read a novel and you're like, oh, that's really good. But it doesn't have to be like a giant, like, a Song of Ice and Fire, 28 different books or blah, 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 or whatever. You know what I mean? We're not doing that. Some people like to watch all kinds of movies. I like to watch all kinds of movies. And some people will only watch Star Wars. They just don't watch anything else, and we don't want to be the just Star Wars people. We want to be the, sometimes I watch this and sometimes I watch that. And sometimes it's the same type of thing. And again, when you make it your ecosystem, if you've decided to hitch your wagon to just that one game, then you have to constantly keep making stuff for that one game, which then kind of starts the churn and all that kind of stuff. Whereas if you go, I made this game, It is available. It will be available. Will continue to be available. We'll even keep tweaking stuff. If there's other changes and questions, we will answer them. FAQs, Discord, whatever. But it's always available, so it's never dead. And then we're going to make another game. And then we're going to do the same thing with that and the same thing with that. And we'll just see how long it goes, because I don't know how scalable it is after, a very long time. If we have, I don't know, in 15 years, we have 20 games or something like that. I don't know how, we'll see. But that's what we're doing. So it'll be interesting. Would be a pink panther. Gotcha. That's I assumed where we were going. Ended up picking up some Gloomspite Gits for Argle-Bargle, thinking I will pick up the Mantic Goblins for second tribe for my son. Nice. Bamboo gives a price off on accessories and filament if you buy with the printer. So if you think you need it, it is cheaper to get it when you buy the printer. Yeah, I didn't buy the nozzles at the time of the printer. I did buy filament. And so, yeah, there was a discount on the filament because I bought it during the time of the printer. But, and honestly, it's interesting because the A1 is on sale right now. Usually it's a $400 printer, and right now they're selling it for $300. So, it's not cheaper currently to buy filament with another printer just to get the discount. But, it's just saying. I noticed this last night. No game is ever dead. It just becomes unsupported. I guess it depends on what you mean by support. Like, even if we had never made Snarl, the games that we produce aren't unsupported. They're just there. They're still available. They're still, if you ask questions, I guess if we just said, okay, we're done, and we shut down the Discord and all that kind of stuff and everything and got rid of the website, well, it'd be stupid to do that. I mean, I could see getting rid of the Discord if we were like, we don't want to talk about it anymore. We still want them available for people to buy. But then at that point, it would be unsupported in that you would buy it from Wargame Vault, but you couldn't ask any questions, really. You couldn't, all that kind of stuff. There's no FAQ, but there'd still be the FAQs to be on the website, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. We're kind of making it up as we go along. And so far, it's working, I think, okay. I love the concept of Battletech, says Grendel. I used to play, but it is so complicated to get back into. I think it may be too lore-driven. I think lore is bad for games. I know I'm wrong, but I still think it's bad for games. I know that lore is what sells GW's games, but I think it's also what holds them back. I think it's what makes problems for them. So it's a double-edged sword, I would say. I love that Spellsy is the name of a magic skill in Argle-Bargle. Sure, I mean, you got Shooty and Stabby and the other ones, Speedy. So you got to pick, when you are building your tribe, you pick what kind of trait, skill. So there's Sneaky, Speedy, Strong, Shooty, Stabby, and Spellsy. And then when you're Spellsy, there are four different spells you can pick from for your tribe. There's the Bing Bong Charm, there's the Bang Bang Charm, there's the Jingit Loss Hex, and the Tibby Bibby Hex. I didn't write any of those. That is total Vince. I don't know if those are references to anything or not, but there you go. And then there's so you choose a skill, and then you choose a god that your goblins, admire. And so that's when you have Gabul, who's the big god, Giblix, who is the Lashmaster, Greebag, who is the trickster, Gadababa, who is the hunter, and Gobblerex, who is the knight. So, you basically, you kind of figure things out from there. I'm still in the process of repainting minis for a dead game from 1978, Strike Team Alpha, with the intention of playing it again after more than 40 years. That's the thing. If you've got a copy of it, it's never dead to you, right? I own a copy of Inquisitor, like the original, early 2000s game where GW was trying to make it well, what if we played with miniatures that were 54 millimeters instead of 28 millimeters? And everyone went no, dog, I don't think it's a good idea at all. And they're like, oh, yeah. And but I picked up a copy of the book, and so I could play it if I wanted to, I guess, technically. Or, you can use it as a jumping off point to do something else, like what people do with Inquisitor 28. The whole concept of the Inq 28 or Inquisitor 28 ethos out on the internet is that they're like, you know what the problem was with this Inquisitor game? The size of the models. But otherwise, the rest of it was like, sort of cool. And there's a bunch of usable stuff in there. So that's kind of where that comes from. I'm just far enough behind Adam to remember when zines became e-zines, far less aesthetically cool. I still I don't know. I still like stuff that's like, I still like things that are like an e-zine. I like downloads because I can then choose to print them if I want to, but I don't have to have a whole bunch of books around that take up a lot of space if I don't want to either. I do have printed copies that I've made for myself of Space Weirdos, for an example, but I generally keep it on my lap or on my iPad. So, it's also more searchable for, if you're like, what's that rule again when you have to do the thing with jumping, and you can just type in jumping and then look it up. That's Control F, but not really because it's an iPad. I hope Vince and yourself will be reviewing Mike Hutchinson, Glenn Ford new book, The Fundamentals of Tabletop Miniature Game Design. I had no idea that they were making one of those. I know of Mike. I don't know if I know of Glenn. But I know of Mike. I know that one of Mike's recent games, Hobgoblin. I think Hobgoblin is now finally for sale. Like they were like, having to get it out to Kickstarter people and all that kind of stuff. And now it is like for sale to people. So that's pretty cool if you didn't get on the Kickstarter. Life in zines and PBM long before BBS and then forums. Oh yeah, my friend Mike and I had a BBS at his house only at night because like his parents had a second phone line that was for a fax machine, but they told us it was okay for us to have the BBS on that line in the evenings because it wasn't business hours, so it was fine. So we would then, we ran a BBS in the evenings. It was a lot of fun. How did you find the setup/learning experience with your filament printer? Interested in getting one, but my beginner experience with the resin printer was rough. If filament is similar, I might skip. So I bought a Bamboo Labs A1, and so here's how it worked. I'm trying to remember which one of these benches. This is the one here. From the time that I used my pocket knife to open the box till the time that I had a printed benchmark, aka Benchy, little boat, was probably just a little bit under an hour. So it was incredibly quick and easy to set up. There was like one big part you had to screw into another part, from the shipping box. There's like the overall top part, and then there's the base. And you got to screw those two together. And there's, I don't know, half a dozen screws or maybe a dozen screws. You screw them together. It's very simple. And then you plug a thing into some things and blah, blah, blah. And that's about it. And you're ready to go. And then you put the filament in there that you buy, and it just works. And it's like you can't tell here because look, it says out of focus, but it's a very smooth, simple, very easy. Like I said, from the time I cut the paper or cut the tape on the box to the time that I had a printed Benchy was a little bit less than an hour. Bamboo Labs, their printers are very, very simple to set up. They're very auto leveling, auto calibration, like all that kind of stuff. And they work really, really well. So it has made filament printing far easier and also faster. They print very quickly. They move real fast and all that kind of stuff. So that's really interesting too. And they're very accurate. And I don't know, every person I've ever talked to, who's used Bamboo Labs is like, oh yeah, no, those are the best ones out there. And they're, like I said, relatively inexpensive. Like right now, the A1, which is the one that I have, I was just looking yesterday because I was buying some new nozzles. And it was on sale. Bamboo. This is not what you call sponsored. There. So yeah, they've got, evidently Black Friday is the entire month of November now, I guess. That's just the way it works. And yeah, that's the one right there that I've got, the Bamboo Lab A1 that just popped up. I don't know why this website doesn't. There we go. The A1, if you get it without this doohickey on the side, they call it the AMS. and it allows you to have multiple different types of, and it switches between. I don't bother with any of that stuff because I'm going to paint it all anyway, so I don't need the AMS. But yeah, this printer is the printer I have, and I bought mine for $400, and it's currently for $300. So, it looks like that. It looks like that. It looks like that. But yeah, this frame part here comes separate from the bottom part, and then you just have to kind of, they show you how to like basically get it in and screw the things together, and then boom, you're done. And it works out nice. So if you're interested, I don't have a code or anything like that. I'm not going to get any kind of kickback or anything like that. I've just been very happy with it. For those in Bristol, you might enjoy playing Argle-Bargle in Argy-Bargy and give it some Argy-Bargy. I don't even know what that means, but it sounds fun. How did you, all right, I just read that one. Have any software companies approached you about turning your board games into video games? No, which is interesting because years and years and years ago, way back in the Middle Ages, in the 90s, my friend Peter and I had a game company which was called Snarling Badger Games. That's kind of where it started. And we made a game called BattleBots. This is before the BattleBots TV show. We had the name first. That's a whole nother story. But it was a very simple kind of miniaturesy board game sort of little thing or whatever. It had little cardboard standees that you used for your bots. And a small independent video game company did reach out to us and started making like stuff, and they were going to make a game, and it never happened. But they did make a bunch of cool assets and stuff like that, and everything like that. Different cool artwork and things based off of our artwork that they were going to put in the game, but it never happened. I may even still have some of that stuff somewhere on a hard drive. I don't know. Looking forward to this fun Goblin game. You guys have the old GW fantasy feel that they seem to have forgotten. I mean, they just decided to change tacks. They've just decided to go a different direction, which is fine. It's up to them. Goblins are fun models to paint. Lots of character. Oh, yeah. Best 3D printer is Dave. It's true. Wax's Dargle is an Irish folk song. Dangle being slang for a holiday. Interesting. Huh. Let's see here. Goblin Rabble. So there, Rabble, Goblin Rabble was what the name of the 3D printer STL whatever file. That's what I got on My Mini Factory. Artisan Guild on My Mini Factory has some great goblins. Look for the Faldorn Goblin set. Nice. I don't think I saw those. Have you tried the Army Painter pastels yet? I got the salmon one for my respiratory wings. Probably Vespid, maybe? Wings. It's really nice. Yeah, I have. My favorite is Ghost Juice. That's not what it's called. That's what I call it. But it is seafoam, pastel seafoam. And you prime a model that is a ghost or that you want to be a ghost. Anything can be a ghost if you believe in yourself. You prime it basically white, and then you cover it with that stuff, and then after it dries, do a little bit of white dry brush. And yeah, it looks like a ghost. It's awesome. Painting up an Ogre Maw Tribe Spearhead. The box was huge, and so are the dudes. Also printed off some extra bits from Cults 3D to add to their empty backs, and they're looking pretty cool. Nice. It's a cat. Indeed. It is definitely Rex. Kitties are the true form of chaos for minigames. Oh my god. He is a chaos agent for sure. Rex is definitely a chaos agent. Biggest GW terrain ripoff of all time was the limited edition Planet Strike terrain. It was advertised with crisp resin terrain, but they were actually vacuum formed crap with blobby details. I don't know if I know those. When I'm Uncle Adam's age, I want to be the same color as my cat. Well, I mean, he's kind of brown. Yeah. We got a brown one, which is Rex. We got an orange one, which is George. We have a, what is she? She is a calico, but she's a dilute calico, which means instead of being black, orange, and white, She is gray, tan, and white, and her name is Margot. And then she's got a sister, littermate, who is a dilute tortoiseshell. So she's all kind of mixed together, gray and tan and whatnot. And then lastly, we've got our oldest at this point, which is Carlson, and he is a black and white tuxedo cat. So he's very fancy. Was sleeping with incredible headache. Well, I hope it got better. Just finished my Sons of Behemoth Spearhead using Skeleton Giant and Bretonian Giant from Highlands Miniatures. They are so much more interesting than the GW Man Crushers. The models are fine. It's just that, like, when you paint 3 of them, like, their legs are all the same. You know, you can swap their feet and stuff like that, but I wish that they had, like, maybe slightly some sort of way to pose the legs easier than having to cut everything apart and mess around with all that kind of shenanigans. Sometimes I let Pumpkin into the hobby space, the pocket dimension, but he inevitably goes where he shouldn't and decides to do gravity checks. Yes, this is why the cats don't go in the basement. I mean, every once in a while they sneak down there if you let them by accident, but for the most part, no. Snarling Badger is like a pulp game company in a good way. Yeah, I could see that. Episodic. Well, episodic is more like it's all the same thing, you know, like each of our games is different. Not only just like, oh, we made this one sci-fi and this one fantasy, but also the rules are different. We don't go and just go, we're just going to, swap different skins, but keep the same engine. Everything's a different thing in every one of our games because we very strongly believe that the rules have to do with the story and vice versa. Like the rules matter. I'm not sure you could just come up with like, and there's nothing wrong with like 1-page rules and stuff like that. That's fine. But for us, because of the way that we're kind of writing these things, again, for them, 1-page rules, that's kind of their big ecosystem. Each of their games, they don't crank out a new game every year. They have these games that are their things. They update, they do that kind of stuff. And so in that situation, I get it. Same with like the Nordic Weasel stuff, like 5 parsecs from home, 5 leagues from the borderlands, etc. For us, though, the way that initiative works in Reign in Hell versus the way that initiative works in Majestic 13, they're very different. And the reason is because of the way that we're trying to tell the story. So, these things are related. And that's why, because you roll these D12s for how many demons you have, and then you figure out how you stack it, all that kind of stuff in Reign in Hell, that is very different than it works in Majestic 13, and it's because of the different kind of ways that this battle is going, so I'm glad Reign in Hell's got new scenarios, but new philosophies is what I'd love. Maybe a minority here. I mean, we did have a new philosophy in the last Snarl. There was the what the heck were they called? The Faithful? I think so, but yeah, we didn't have a new philosophy this time, but we have a new philosophy last time. You guys are kind of like Osprey Publishing, maybe? Well, I mean, Osprey mostly publishes other people's stuff. We kicked around the idea of doing that for a hot second. We were like, well, maybe we could find people and publish their stuff. But as it turns out, that's a lot more work than we wanted to do, and we both do have other things, YouTube channels and Vince has got a day job and I'm doing stuff with Army Painter and all kinds of, so yeah, we're both, pretty busy. So doing our own game and a half a year, basically, we kind of have Snarl. Snarl is kind of what we consider kind of a half a game because they're generally the game that's in Snarl has never got the solo and co-op stuff in it because that's more work, but also more space. Like to put in like AI type rules for goblins so you could play solo would take a bunch more pages to do. And then it puts us in a situation where we can't, we just all of a sudden now we've got a full blown 64-page book and we probably just should have made a regular book. But because we're trying to make these kind of games, these are also designed to some degree. Both of these games so far, and I think this is maybe the way it's going to go, have been kind of party games a little bit. Not something that you're going to sit and be like, oh, this is the next game that I play for the next 6 months. We're going to do a huge campaign, all that kind of stuff. There are kind of post-game process campaign style rules if you want to use them. If you did want to play a series of linked, stuff. But for the most part, it is designed so that it's a fun game that you play and then there you go. So Osprey doesn't typically write their own games as much as publish other folks. Yep. Mordheim is proof that you can't kill a good game. Also true. Been a while since I caught the stream, sitting down to some Uruk High Scouts. Nice. You guys still supporting Rain in Hell? Seem to have haven't seen much traffic for it lately. Yeah, I mean it's still available, still for sale. So, and we just did, like, again, in the Snarl that came out on Friday, there is a section in here which is called Rain in Hell, The Broken Door, and this adds 3 new scenarios that you play solo or co-op, and you play them in a sequence, and it kind of tells the story, and it's right there. Supported, unsupported is an interesting topic. It's like Risk and Monopoly don't require ongoing releases. They were made and they exist and they don't require ongoing support. Yeah, that's same thing. I have 3 Osprey published games and I love that they're all miniature agnostic: Gasland, Stargrave, and Tomorrow's War. Yeah, I mean, technically Stargrave, they do make miniatures for it, but it is miniature agnostic, so you can use whatever you want. But the Stargrave miniatures are pretty awesome. It's basically the notion that for a game to remain interesting, it requires ongoing releases. I don't know that that's the thing. I don't think it should. It doesn't make sense, because that's just, in my mind, it's just more consumerism to what end? I think, again, it's the scope of the game or the scale of the game. A game like Warhammer, they want that to be your life. They want that to be that's the game you play. You're not a war gamer, you're a Warhammer player. They push that all the time, which I think is bunk. I don't like it. I think that it's much more interesting to play some of this and some of that and different things and a little bit of this and a little bit of that and all that kind of stuff. But everybody's got their thing. So if that's all you want to do is just play one game, or you just want to watch one movie or one series of movies, I only watch Star Wars, I only watch Star Trek, whatever, that's fine. But I like to watch a bunch of different things. So there's that. And the same thing with games. I like to be able to hopping back and forth between games and play different games. And if it's you got to have 28 books and you got to have this giant army, then it's hard to hop back and forth between multiple, games like that. But when it's like, I got these 5 guys over here, I could actually use 3 of them over in this game if I wanted to, and then maybe add some other guys over here, and then this terrain works across both or all 4 games or whatever you want. Like, that's the thing to me that's more interesting. But I don't need, I think Space Weirdos and I haven't used it yet, and I just found out about it recently, but there is a solo add-on to Space Weirdos, so you can play it in solo mode. But other than that, I don't think there's really been any other expansions or add-ons or anything like that, but it's still a really fun game and I enjoy playing it. It just doesn't need to be. I just think that GW has trained people so much to no, you got to keep constantly, you better be, if you didn't buy a book this year, the game is dead, right? And you're like, no, it's not. You could just use the books you got now. Well, if we didn't make a new game version every 3 years, I mean, we'd all die, right? I'm like, no, I assure you we wouldn't. Let's see here. It's also an important distinction between unsupported, aka dead, and fan-supported. Look at the OG Epic 40K, now totally fan-supported. I'm even on a Clan War Discord. Nice. Mr. OK wrote those spell names. That man is a walking enigma. Sure. Oh yeah. No. Yes. Vince is definitely. Vince is he's many dogs. He definitely is a. He's. I'm very glad to work with him and be his friend. I'm so old. I remember when lore was called fluff. I still call it fluff frequently, but I know that GW doesn't like that. And the only reason I can say that is because I talked to a guy once who he got a job working as a manager at a GW store, and I knew him through some other people, and I happened to actually go into the store, and I'm like, hey, and we were talking and whatever. And he was talking about how when he was doing the interview for the job, online, he used the word fluff, and they were like, no, we don't use that word here. It's lore. It's not fluff. And he's like, oh yeah, sorry. So that's why I like to call it fluff. Let's see here. You could easily play Inquisitor in 28 and no reason why you shouldn't, considering the original 54 models are long gone. That's true. That being said, also, regular Inquisitor is hard. Like it's really more of a role playing game, and I think you need a DM, and it's a whole thing. So, but it's got some cool concepts. I was very happy to get the book. I was actually at a local shop a couple towns over, and they had just had the book since it'd been sitting on the shelf literally since the early 2000s, and they sold it to me for like cover price. It was not like I bought it like used on eBay and it was well loved and I had to pay a bunch of money and like, beat out of a bunch of other people to get it. I just bought it at a local shop because it had been there for a really long time. I was like, oh crap, that's right, and I bought it, and so that was cool. Inquisition was a narrative action TTRPG marketed as a mini skirmish game. Yeah. I have a fondness for paper. My toxic trait is buying old RPGs and war games I won't ever play. Earth Dawn is the latest. Oh, I remember Earth Dawn from FASA. I do also sometimes buy RPGs that I know I'm never going to play. I've got Morkborg. I've got Cyborg. I've got Eat the Reich, which is astounding to look at and read. But again, I just enjoy reading them generally. I did do a big... I paid a bunch of money, kind of, not like zillions or nothing like that. I paid like, I don't know, probably $80 for an old, slightly worn copy of an RPG from the 90s called Underground. I think it was called Underground. And I bought it originally. I owned a copy. I bought it at Gen Con back when Gen Con was still in Milwaukee. And it was a sci-fi kind of or near future sort of RPG where the government had figured out basically how to make super soldiers. And so they would do that. And then they would go have all these wars and proxy wars and stuff like that and whatever. And then you would come home as a super powered super soldier and then be discharged. And now, you're kind of homeless or whatever and that kind of stuff, but you can fly or you can shoot, I don't know, like acid out of your eyes or stuff like that. And so it was a really interesting game. And it was, like I said, it was called Underground. I'm 98% sure. And I had a copy and I loved it, just reading it. And it had super cool artwork and all this crazy stuff. And then it was in the trunk of my car. This is still literally in the 2000s. It was in the trunk of my car. Maybe it was still in the 90s. And it rained real hard and my trunk leaked and it got all waterlogged and stuff. So I eventually threw it away. But then I remembered it and then I found it on eBay. And so I own a copy. It's in the basement. It's in a sealed like tub. So it hopefully won't, get moistened again. But yeah. Again, no reason, but just it's fun to read. I do prefer printed rules, just can't get the hang of reading rules via tablet. See, like I said, for when I'm gaming, yes, I do still kind of like it. Like I just picked up, besides that Valkyrie spaceship game thing I was talking about before, I also picked up 1490 Doom recently, which is a fun, just a really interesting kind of like, it's a skirmish game where you have like, each side only has 3 models. So it's a 3-person skirmish game, or not 3 persons, like, your team is 3 people. Your opponent's term is, I don't know if you can play more than 2. Maybe you can. But you play it on a 2-foot by 2-foot board, which they suggest it's best if the board is circular. And then you kind of build up, like, because basically the idea is that there's this stuff seeping up from the ground that's kind of poisoning everybody. So the point of the game is to try to crawl to the highest spot. So there's a lot of rules for pushing people off of things and falling off of things and stuff like that, and climbing and things like that. But it's still got, swords and bows and crap like that. So there, yeah. Change in scales what's keeping me from getting into Crisis Protocol or Shatterpoint. Yeah, no, I can understand that too. Now, that being said, I did buy some Shatterpoint terrain because I was like, there was not enough to that piece of terrain, that specific piece of terrain that I bought, that made it go, this is definitely, like, it wasn't a bunch of doors where you'd be like, wow, my normal 28 millimeter guys are dwarfed by the size of these doors. There was a couple of pieces. Now, like, a Marvel Crisis Protocol building or car or truck or something like that, and you put a 28 millimeter person next to it, they look squirrely. It doesn't look right. But this one piece, and I forget what the heck it was called, but it was a piece, it was a sci-fi thing. There were some walkways and gangplanks and whatever, I don't know. but it looked like it would fit. Like I saw it in person at a convention, and I was like, when I get home, I'm going to have my local store order me one of those, and then I'm going to use it. I haven't built it yet, of course, but I did. I think I got it this summer, so it's on the list. But in most situations, yeah, you're right. When I was at Nova, not this year, but last year in 23, there was this company that was selling a bunch of cool 3D printed stuff, but most of the stuff that they had there that I was looking at was scaled for Marvel. So, which is a 40 millimeter model instead of 28 millimeter or whatever. And so they had this gas station, and I was like, that gas station would be great for like games like Zona Alpha and other stuff that's like not sci-fi, but and also not fantasy, but not, and I was looking at it, and I'm like, yeah, that gas station's great, but it's just way too big for 28 millimeter. And he's like, well, we can print it in 28 millimeter scale. I was like, oh yeah, I suppose you could just change the scale. And then he's like, yeah. So then I paid for it, and they shipped it to me, and it worked out great. Doing zines has the punk vibe. A game themed on punks might be fun for Snarl. Yeah, I can see that. There is a punk game out there right now called Wild in the Streets by Slow Death Games. It is basically a skirmish that goes on. All the clubs close at the same time, like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever, downtown. And then the different music clubs or whatever. And then people come out of them, and then you got like crust punks and metalheads and like this and like that and blah, blah. It's a super simple, fun kind of rule set. Really, it's more about the models. They're predominantly all metal models, I think. But in the metalheads, one of the models is based off of Sam. So that's also fun. Can't rate the Bamboo A1 high enough for someone getting into FDM printing. Yeah, it's been pretty good. Love the A1. My son is finally tired of printing tanks, so I can get to print all of the scenery I've been waiting to print for years. Nice. On Thingiverse, Duncan Shadow makes some cool looking goblins. Cool. I use an Anchormake M5C because I got it dirt cheap through my wife's work. Mixed bag. I've never even heard of that brand. Interesting. Is filament less toxic than resin? Oh God, yeah. Especially because if you use PLA, PLA is basically biodegradable. It is corn-based, maybe? Something like that. I don't know. But I'm 98% sure that PLA which is a specific type of filament is biodegradable. Now, ABS, if you use an ABS filament, then that will give off a fume to some degree that is not great. So generally you want to try to figure out a way to like vent that, but PLA is not a problem from what I understand. So good morning from, and that's the thing too, is like literally like you pop it off of the plate and then boom, you're done. So, and I I'm not gonna, but I could lick this, I'm sure. Doesn't have to wash, doesn't have to cure, doesn't have UV light, any of that kind of stuff. Let's see here. Enjoying your stream live keeps my mind off the fact that we lost one of our cats on Friday. Oh, that's too bad. I'm sorry to hear that. I've been through that myself a couple of times. My FLGS had a special where they randomly bagged a selection of Vallejo acrylics, discontinued or renamed colors for $15 for 10. There you go. That's cool. In the 90s, you mean the late 1900s? Yes. I often have an impossible time choosing new paint colors to try, anxiety inducing. The older and lazier I get, the more I come to appreciate cardboard and acrylic standees. Oh, yeah. Death Wizards would be a great video game, a la old PS3 Baldur's Gate mechanics. Yeah, it could be. Let's see here. There we go. Is a filament printer smelly, stinky when in use? Not really. Again, if it's ABS, that's maybe a different story. But PLA gives off a little tiny bit of an odor, but it actually kind of smells sweet. But you have to actually be kind of close to it to smell it. If I'm just standing there looking at it, I have to be kind of down by the print head, and then I can smell it a little bit. But otherwise, yeah. A1 is a fantastic tool. Fully recommend it for beginners. It's extremely plug and play. Like I said, yeah, I went from cutting the box open to having a printed benchy in less than an hour. It's able to print out a full table of Alpha Strike terrain in less than a week. Nice. Resin printers smell a lot. I have a small house. Sure. Yeah, I can get that. Let's see here. Never heard you talk about Confrontation by Rackham. Have you ever played it or seen the models? I've heard of it. I know Sam was a big fan of the models and owned a bunch of them because they were a lot of fun to paint and they were very interesting and whatnot. I never played it, though. I did play and owned a bunch of another game that Rackham did, which was called AT-43, and that was a sci-fi game. And the thing that was interesting about AT-43 is that those models were pre-painted. So it was weird, like, to get pre-painted models, but they weren't poorly painted, and they were pretty decent. And that game was, I thought, really cool, and then it, immediately went out of business. But yeah, that's But I never played Confrontation, but I'm familiar vaguely with it. For excellent goblins that match the game's feel, check out Northumbrian, Tin Soldier, Oakbound Studios, and North Star Miniatures. Sure, yeah. Carlson is a fancy boy. He is. Late, but I made it. Hello from Idaho Falls. How you doing? My cat wonders what goes on in that funny-smelling room I just disappear into for hours at a time. Sure. Tuning in live for the first time. Thanks for all the great content. Well, thank you. I appreciate it, Jesse. Cats have never been fully domesticated, by the way. They are an extremely hesitant and picky house guest at all times. Sure. I mean, I don't know. A couple of them seem pretty comfortable here. Happy Sunday. My Rain and Hell Cabal is returning from retirement in the Nether Realms to kick some demon behind once again. Stoked to pick up my Oculus Spear and return to the world that I enjoyed. Well, good. I'm glad to hear it, actually. I'm slowly but surely working on assembling 20 3x3 tables worth of terrain for some Malifaux events I'm running in Rhode Island. Wow, that's a lot of tables. That's pretty cool. Have you and Vince considered doing a more scenario-based game using spiral-bound maps type setup like Gloomhaven, Jaws of the... no, we haven't. Number one, I don't know where we would get that stuff printed, the spiral-bound stuff. Because I don't think they do any spiral-bound at Wargame Vault. They might have used to have, but I don't think they do anymore. Or I could be thinking of something else. I do remember seeing spiral binding somewhere, but it might have been at a different company. It might have been at Lulu. Anyway, whatever. Also, I'm really like games like that where you like open up a map and just play like on a grid or whatever, or just printed like terrain and stuff like that. I really like my terrain to be three-dimensional and all that jazz. So I don't know that I would enjoy making that type of game to some degree. So I think that's part of the problem there too. Good morning from a chilly, rainy Juneau. It's not pronounced that way, I don't think. Alaska. Getting some random fantasy minis primed to paint this winter for Sword Weirdo shenanigans. Nice. Haven't seen GW use the term wargaming in a long time. Well, they don't want it to be. They want Warhammer to be the hobby, is what they want. Variety is the spice of life. It's true. Suggs new video. Suggs. Oh, right. Louise, Rogue Hobbies. Yes. I didn't know. Yeah, that's right. Her last name is like Sudgington or something like that. Yeah. Okay. It wasn't until I saw the thing about the Gundam models, blah, blah, blah. Because I didn't, I was like, I saw the thumbnail in my feed. I just didn't watch the video. Giving a glowing review of Gundam models is going to ruffle feathers regarding the quality and value. Oh, yeah. I mean, for a long time, I've had the idea of making a video like that. I bought a Gundam model before the pandemic. We were at a hobby town. Yeah, it was back when I still worked at Milk Can. We were at a hobby town, like we'd eaten lunch, and it was like a Hobby Town USA store was just a couple doors down from the place we ate. So we went in there just to kind of poke around and see what they had. And every hobby town is a little different. Like the one here that I have in town is all about RC cars. Like there are RC cars and RC airplanes up the yin yang. They got all the other stuff too, but that's really their thing. And the one that was in the city that we were in is a couple towns over. That one is just Gundam up the yin yang. There was just like piles and piles and just shelves and shelves and all the different type of paints and pens and all that stuff. And I was like, wow. And I looked at this model which I thought was really cool. And my GW brain was like, yeah, that's probably what, 60 or 70 bucks. And it was $14. I was like, huh. And so I bought it. And I was for years thinking about making a video like that, but I just never sat down to do the research. So I'm assuming she must have. So that's good for her. But yeah, if you think about it, like, it's kind of interesting how much more expensive that stuff is. Now, I'm assuming that there's like far more volume of those things or blah, 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 or whatever. But yeah. Where'd that go? We're talking about Suggs. There, right there. Variety is the spice of dice. Oh, there you go. My Warhammer Old World books only serve to raise my laptop for Zoom meetings. No high elves for me. Sure. Ordered my Snarl download today so I can start reading. Well, I appreciate that, Rob. I hope it works out well for you. Hobby polygamy versus hobby monogamy. Yeah, I suppose that you could put it that way if you wanted to. Sure. I've been out for Remembrance Day in England, smashed, but just wanted to say I bloody love everyone here. Well, that's very good. Our hobby is we're the best people. Absolutely. I mean, I think it's a great hobby. I really do. Yeah, absolutely. Fluff to me is now the snippets of writing that create a feel. Lore is the whole stories. Okay, it's cool. Greetings from the center of the universe, Toronto. Painting plague marines as giant bruises. Ooh, a lot of purple and green. Nice. As late as 2012, I used to visit a game store that still had the Inquisitor rulebook on the shelf, still sealed and unopened, but ain't been there since. Gotcha. As long as delivery services are needed, you'll never see a homeless flying person. You wouldn't think so. Yeah, but that's what they did in the book. Doom 1490, floor is lava. Kinda, yeah. That's a little bit of the thing. They reached out to me because I had not heard of it. They reached out to me in an email, and I was like, huh, that's interesting. And I think I went and I don't even remember if I went and looked at the website. I just was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I didn't really, I was busy putting out the new, getting things ready for the new book or the zine. And I'm 98% sure that YouTube must be reading my email because all of a sudden I started seeing videos from the people that are making 1490 Doom showing up in my whatever suggested feed or whatever. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay, well, I heard of that. Yeah, they must be doing really well. But videos, if the video's been getting enough traction that I'm seeing it on my thing unsolicited, that must be something. And then I look and they're like, oh, it's got 38 views or 112 views. And I'm like, huh. And that's when I think I decided that YouTube probably reads your email. So then it checks your email and goes, oh, okay, here, yeah. Anyway, book looks cool. Like I said, I bought it. I don't know, it was 20 bucks maybe, which is maybe a little high for a PDF, frankly, but people are going to charge what they're going to charge. I can never play it with anyone, but the Traveler RPG books I found so immersive, everything from starship stats to personal weapons and everything. Oh yeah, no, the Traveler stuff is very interesting, but yeah, I don't know. I got a friend who owns like nearly everything for Traveler. I don't know that he's ever run the game. Maybe, but he's had a lot of plans to run it, but I don't think he's ever actually run it. I think part of it is I got to find people who are interested in playing it, and it's kind of a hard sci-fi thing, and I think to some people that's not a turn on. Let's just say that. Could Tanks of the Apocalypse be played solo? It's not designed that way. It's a 2 to 10 player game, so not currently, but maybe if there was, I don't know. It's a good question. Probably not. We would have to write something extra, obviously. Working on Griffhounds, Old Metal Guardsmen, Chaos Cultists, Tau Stealth Suits, and Legions Imperialis Auxilia Flyers, among other things. So that's a whole bunch of things on your table. Osgiliath terrain. Sorry, old joke. Uncle Adam did find the word his kryptonite a few years ago. I could not say Osgiliath for the life of me. I don't know what it was, but I finally got it. I finally got it fixed. Yeah, that terrain went together pretty well in comparison to the Ophidian Archway or whatever. That stuff went together just fine. And I did buy some more. I bought a big box of like Gondor type terrain for the GW put out a while back, I think. I haven't even touched it much since it showed up. Checking out Wild in the Streets now. Cheers to the recommended mate. Absolutely. Can I eat PLA? I don't think you're supposed to. Blue giant goblins are gorgeous. Resin. They used to be Atlantis miniatures. Oh, that's kind of cool. PLA is based on starch, and several of them use cornstarch. Well, there you go. Traveler had a relaunch a couple years back, I recall. Yeah, what's the guy's name? Is it Tim Miller? Am I making that up? Is that somebody else's name? Maybe isn't Tim Miller the director of like Deadpool? Anyway, whatever the guy is that designed that game, like I bumped into him at, I want to say it was at Gamehole Con, which is a convention in Madison, Wisconsin that's been growing and growing. And I don't know, last I think this year it was probably 5, 6, 7,000 people or something like that. And I'm walking by and I just see this booth with a whole bunch of Traveler stuff in it. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. This guy's just selling a bunch of Traveler stuff. That's neat. And then I walk up and I'm like looking at it and I'm sort of chatting with a guy. And then I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I realized that like the name on all the books is the name on his name tag thing. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is the guy who designed it and everything. And then, like I said, I've never played it, but my friend Peter has been a fan of that game since the 90s. Oh, and that game is older than the 90s, but that's when he first told me about it. So, I think I just found the Sam Mini. It's called Samson Osmas. Yes, I think that's him. Yep. My printers have been making goblins nonstop since picking up the zine this weekend. Nice. I got the rare earth magnets I need to begin my Steel Rift box. So many projects and not enough hours in the day. And that's the way it works. Found a bunch of Halloween-themed balsa wood buildings at Michael's Craft Store for 70% off. Nice. I bought 8 of them with some spooky woods and scattered terrain. That's enough for 2 tables. And the scale is perfect. Bip. Rackham's Confrontation goes back a few years to circa 2004 to 7. Heard good things about it. Yeah, I think that's right. That sounds about right. I think for my goblin, I'm going to use the Hobgrot from Dominion. Oh, yeah, you could do that. The Hobgrots from Dominion? Sure. They're pretty cool. Had a bunch of Christmas-themed buildings, too. Gotcha. AT-43 models were spectacular. I thought they were pretty good for pre-paints, like in comparison to, like, HeroClix and stuff, for sure. I have a ton of them that I still use for Stargrave, Space Weirdos, OPR, Grimdark. Models just need a bit of dressing up, inks and basing, and they're great. Yeah, yeah. Cats aren't domesticated. They domesticated us, probably. At least as a PDF, only people spiral bind it themselves. I mean, if that's part of the deal, though, that they have to be spiral bound, that's kind of a big ask. Resin is nasty stuff. Stinks when it's poured. It's a mess to clean up. Hazardous to sand. Never. That's right. Yeah, but the hazardous to sand. That's true. Never stops off-gassing. My wife always made me take a shower the moment I got home from ArmorCast. Oh, yeah. Oh, and you're talking about regular, like, resin, not even 3D printer resin, but the poured resin. Oh, yeah, I get that. At what point are you saving money by buying a 3D printer to print off 28mm figs? I think that, again, I don't know that 3D printing figures is really about saving money. Because you're right, you got to buy the machine and you got to ventilate it and you got to get special, you got to wear rubber gloves and you got to clean. It's like it's a whole thing. The trick with 3D printing is not to be like, hey, I saved a whole bunch of money. Over time, you probably will, especially if you print a lot. If you print a bunch of armies for stuff, okay, great, you're saving money. For me, the concept is, I'm looking for a specific type of model. I'm looking for something that's very custom. I'm looking for something that's very weird that no one could ever afford to produce in plastic because plastic production is very expensive. If you're going to produce models in plastic, they better sell. You better not just be like, I think I might sell a couple hundred of these, because you will lose your shirt because the mold making itself is incredibly expensive. The idea behind 3D printing, in my mind, is that I can go onto My Mini Factory and find a really weird, specific, interesting to me type of model that probably wouldn't sell well out in the real world if it was made in plastic. Therefore, that person would go out of business because they couldn't, they wouldn't remake the $10,000 to $50,000 that they have to spend on the molds, and then the distribution and yada yada yada. The idea behind this is to be able to get super cool indie models from all kinds of people all over the world instantly, and then print them this afternoon. Or have my friend Dave print them this afternoon, or whenever he gets to it. But nonetheless, that's really the thing, is it's the more choice. I don't really think it's actually about saving money. Warhammering, indeed. Different strokes, I guess. I really enjoy them as they get to the table with minimal effort. Yeah, I mean, I guess that you're right. It is different strokes. I like miniature games that are, for me at least, are more immersive and have, terrain and stuff and things and like that. I've seen games like that, which you're talking about, and in my mind, it becomes a little board gamey, which there's nothing wrong with board games, but I'm just not a big board game fan. So, there's that too. People always ask Uncle Adam if he will do a particular type of game like they aren't aware he's incredibly strong opinions that greatly limit what he is going to make. I mean, that's a way to put it, I suppose. Because we have Vince and I have the luxury, let's say, because Vince and I have the luxury of being able to, he's got a day job. I used to have a day job. I now do this other stuff. We both have other things. Like if both of us were like, this game company is our only job and we have to be able to pay our mortgages and crap like that and buy food for his many dogs and my even more many cats, though I'm sure his dogs eat more than the cats do. Anyway, then yeah, the game company would really be something that we would have to be like, every game would be like, will people buy this? Do we think, like I said, Majestic 13s are in last place for sales, and we kind of knew that going into it. We were like, this isn't going to necessarily sell that well, and we can make a game that we enjoy that we suspect may not sell as well as the other ones. We're not constantly line goes up, because not only do we not have any shareholders we have to make happy, we also don't have to do this. This isn't our day job. This is for both of us, it's one of our many jobs. And so we still want to make money and it's cool, but we're also not trying to make money hand over fist, which is why we still haven't made a book that costs $20, even though we've been told repeatedly by people in the industry, they're like, you're not doing it right. You should be charging more for that book. And we're like, it's a $19 book. I mean, again, the last Snarl was 28 pages. This one's 36 pages. It has a mini game in it, or micro game, whatever, and 3 add-ons instead of 2 like the last book, but we're still charging $8 for it. In this economy, come on. We're not very smart, but we're happy with what we're doing. So yeah, that's kind of the thing. It's what makes him him. What makes us us to some degree. Yeah. Because that's the thing too. I don't know that I would really not want to work on a project that I didn't want to work on. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, it does, but it's obvious. I wouldn't want to work on a project that is a game that I wouldn't want to play, I guess maybe is the more specific thing. I don't know. Gundam models are fantastic. Would love if someone made a game to use them. Didn't Ash Barker make a game that kind of used them? Gamma Wolves? Does Gamma Wolves use Gundams? It uses weird robots that when I watched I watched his battle report originally when Gamma Wolves came out, and I was like, I don't know where the heck those came from. They're cool, but he didn't produce them. And so yeah. I swear there is somebody making a Gundam game, though. I could be wrong. AT-43 stuff has gotten harder to find over the years. Yes. Oh, yeah. Visited the hobby store I grew up playing Warhammer at, moved away for university, and the owners were telling me how some of their patrons were telling them to carry Gundams, so they did. Oh, that's cool. I enjoy building Gundam models and converting / kit bashing them for gaming purposes. Nice. Seems video game companies know we play all formats, but GW didn't get the memo. Have Space Marine 2 Everywhere made a hit? I finished that game along with the help of moderator Matt. It was very pretty. It was very well produced. I did not particularly enjoy it. I enjoyed the first one more, just the control scheme for me. That whole kind of Dark Souls kind of thing where you got to like dodge and roll and parry and all that kind of stuff that they added into the second one. I'm an old man and I don't care. So yeah, I just kind of preferred the first one as far as play, but the second one, like, it's obviously gorgeous. So there's that too. Let's see here. $15 model that you never took out of the box sounds like a great deal. Well, again, I still have it. I know exactly where it is. It's just one of those things that eventually I want to build. But I was considering, the reason I was holding on to it because I was considering making a video about it. And I'm like, well, if I build it now, if I don't film it, then I don't have footage of me filming it to have running in B-roll while I'm talking about it and stuff like that. So I like held on to it, and then I just never got around to doing a model or a video about it. But honestly, like, I should check and see how much that model sells for now, and then just compare it to like a regular single 28 millimeter like model that GW sells, like a Hero Person, who's at $35 to $45, and go, what, you know. But like I said, at this, then I'm going to get people who be like, oh, you know, Rogue Hobbies already did that. And I'll be like, well, I mean, she did. That's cool. Like I said, I was thinking about doing it, and she beat me to it, and I'm glad to hear it, because then I don't have to do the research and figure it out. But it is weird, isn't it? Speaking about pre-painted models, got me into the hobby was the original Mage Knight by Oh yeah, I remember Mage Knight. Yeah, I bought a bunch of that stuff. Still regret selling my crappy models. I still have a few laying around that I was like, I can use these for kit bashing, but they're soft. Not only are they like not very good detail, but they're also even a bit rubbery. Funny part of gunpla, I don't like that word. It sounds like I was just like talking and then stopped. Pla. Like, it's just, there was some sort of, I don't remember what the heck it was for. It was called Salonpa or Salonpla or Salonpa. It was like some sort of I don't know if it was a medicine or a makeup or something, but there used to be commercials for it all the time. And I would see that word and it would just make me like shiver. And gunpla is kind of the same way. But nonetheless, I know what it is. Where was I? I was just reading a thing about it. Have you gotten any games of Cyberpunk, Red Combat Zone? A friend and I are running it at PAX Unplugged. Cool. No, I'm still slowly working on the models, but I've had too many things getting in the way. The funny part of Gunpla is that the push fit and not GW version is that the funny part of Gunpla is that push fit and not GW version that is for kids or real lazy people. I'm not sure I understand I'm not sure I understand that. But I do know that the Gundams and things like that are easier to build in general, from what I understand. Lord knows there's some GW kits that are just like lately. Picked up some Gundam models. We were in Japan. Declan really enjoyed building them, so we will be doing more in the future. Just need to find a local place to pick them up. You guys don't have you probably don't have Hobbytown USA. You have Hobbytown Australia there? I have no idea how far the Hobbytown empire goes. But that's where I saw a whole bunch of them. Counting on it already raining outside so I can avoid yard work today. I mean, yeah. Badgers could do a new version of Townscape, like that one from GW. Printable terrain, bridge, town hall. Could do sci-fi, fantasy, Townscape. I don't know what Townscape is. I'm not familiar with that. Just got a mobile suit from the new Netflix series Big W. Not heard of that. Big W. Is it W for win? Blue9, how you doing? Juno is pronounced like Juno. Yeah, I get that. I was being weirdly French. Also looking up 1490 Doomed right now. It looks sweet. Yeah, it's a well laid out book, and I like the concept. Like, there's a part of me that would be like, it would be sort of fun to build, you know, because if you look on their website, or not on their website, well, maybe it's on their website. If you look on their YouTube channel or whatever, they have these like kind of, you know, castle things that go up, and it's just basically you've got this 2 foot by 2 foot round, you know, board, and then you have this sort of different segmented piece, weird castle thingy that goes up to the top, because it's all about trying to get to the top first, which is interesting. And then only having 3 models per side or per person or whatever. Let's see here. When I was 15 or 16, we started a Traveler campaign, but never played more than 1 or 2 sessions before life got in the way. Yeah, that happens. Federal holidays are perfect days for Argle-Bargle. Kids are super excited. Nice. Well, that's very cool. I have to go, but please remember to take a moment at the 11th hour to remember the sacrifice of the many that are still with us and hope that we have left us lest we forget. Gotcha. Mark Miller. Yeah, not Tim Miller. You're right. It was Mark Miller. That's right, with a C. Let's see here. Purchased 2 boxes of Reaper Bones Goblins to use for Blood Bowl, but I think I have a better use for them now. Nice. Your description of the theme of Underground sounds like the exact plot to the game, to the comic book Martial Law. It was very martial law coded, as the kids say today. Yeah, it was definitely because I was a big fan of the martial law comic book, and then this RPG came out, and I'm like, oh, this has got a total martial law vibe to it. Maybe not as over the top, but definitely, yeah. I was looking at replacing my 3D printer and estimate that I'm spending 40 to 50 cents Canadian per miniature, plus the cost of the STL. This is still significantly cheaper than retail minis. Yes. Oh, for sure. Absolutely. That is definitely the case in many situations. The time part, well, see, that's the thing. So, like, you can buy a bunch of miniatures and you have to build them, and scrape the mold lines. Whereas with 3D printed stuff, you don't have to build them, or generally, sometimes you do, but mostly you don't. And also, you don't have to scrape mold lines. But there's those weird little support nipples that you have to sometimes scrape off. And also, there's all of the prep and goo and all that kind of stuff. So it kind of evens out. But at the end of the day, it is cheaper. It's just depending also on how much you value your time to some degree. There's a lot of different things. For me, I just still haven't, like, again, if I didn't have my good friend Dave, who is like printing things and, I'm paying him money for it. And then I don't know. I don't know that I don't know how much 3D printing. I might have actually, gone forward with the resin stuff. But at this point, I'm kind of like, I don't know. When did that guy get a dog? That's weird. Our neighbor is walking a dog, and as far as I can tell, they're not dog owners, but maybe they just recently got a dog. That's weird. Anyway, 3D mini mindset is like the garage model kit mindset stuff they'd never make. Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, like, a garage kit, for people that don't know, is when you, back in the day, you'd sculpt up some sort of cool thing, like a bust or like a weird whatever, that kind of thing. And then you would, like, make your own rubber molds, pour all that stuff, do all that stuff, sell it in magazines and things like that. And they were called garage kits because you generally produced them in your garage. But it wasn't something that you would get at the stores too frequently. There were some stores that would carry that kind of stuff because they were into that kind of vibe, but for the most part, not so much. And that's a lot of the people who are Patreon sculptors and things like that. They make stuff that would not sell in the normal market, but there's enough people who think that that's super cool that they'll back that person's Kickstarter, or not Kickstarter, their Patreon, and that person can just sit there and sculpt all the time and crank stuff out and make a living, and that kind of thing, which is pretty cool. But if that person wanted to do that same work and then also expect how to figure out how to produce it, molds, warehouse, fulfillment, distribution, all that stuff, it's just something you can't really make any money off of when you're looking at weird specific stuff like that. I like the wargame/RPG hybrid stuff. Majestic 13 scratches an itch I didn't know existed. We try to do that with a lot of the games because and when we're saying RPG, I'm always thinking more like a video game RPG, where it's not as much about playing a role as it is like, oh, I'm going to beef up my such and such stat now because I got more experience doing this, or I'm going to add this new skill because I got experience doing that. So think of like Fallout. There's not a lot of role playing in there. They'll sometimes give you choices on things you say, but in many situations, if you decide to be a bad guy, then it's just the game becomes unplayable, right? But in this situation, you are getting to go through and constantly beef up your stats and skills and feats and all that kind of different kind of shenanigans. Depends on the game. And that's what we're looking at generally, which is the same type of thing you've got in games like Mordheim. Mordheim's exactly the same way. Mordheim's one of the OG, kind of types of games for that, with that whole sort of campaign play post-game process. Does this guy, like, he was out of bit, he got knocked out of, out of play during the game. Is he dead, or is he just like limping, or is he better and he rubbed some dirt on it, or what happened, that kind of thing. Have you seen Carnivale, Italian Renaissance weird Venice skirmish warband? I have. It's never been a thing that I've been super interested in. It's just as a subject, I've never gone, oh yeah, I'm really. So I don't know. But I know the company that started it sold it, and I think TT Combat owns it now, but I might be wrong. Have you seen Oh, I just read that one. Second edition D&D Gamma World. Some of my group got into Laser Burn. Traveler was towards the end for me. Yep. My wallet thanks you for your ethos. Well, I appreciate that. I am late to the goblin discussion. That's okay. Bastarium has some great goblin sets. Really? Because their stuff is always really super cool, but it's always like really super spooky and like a monster ripping another monster in half and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. I didn't know they made goblins. That's pretty cool. Huh. Has goblins standing on goblins. Well, that could be your great goblin right there. I'll have to take a look at that. I did not know. Because, yeah, I've always seen Bastarium stuff, and I'd always thought it was awesome, but I just didn't figure he'd have, like goblins, you know? There was a free game system that used Gunpla once, and there is also one for 30-minute missions. Interesting. Ash Barker did Gamma Wolves, and you could use Gundam models even as there were models produced for it. Huh. Salon Pass heated patches for muscle pain. Stupid name. Sounds like it'll wax you clean when you remove it. See, yeah, no, I get that. I knew it was something like that. I don't like the word gunpla either. What's the point? I mean, it's short for Gundam plastics, although I thought I heard it was something for I thought the pla was for play maybe, but I guess. And then somebody here says possibly it's for gun platform. I don't know. But either way, it's a word that I'm not against the concept of what it's for. Just the word itself makes me slightly uncomfortable. Just ending a word with pla. I know it's weird. I don't know. Wouldn't the hardest part about making a rule system for Gundam be the flexible scale in the models, because there is a pretty wide scale? Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, because you could have I could have a guy who's like this tall, and you could have a guy who's this tall, but the scale, yeah, I think that's probably the hard part that's keeping it behind. You either need to say this is of a specific scale, and I don't even know what kind of scales they work off of in Gunpla, so I don't know. It would take some research. And then also you'd have to be able to find people who can, the way that some of these companies do it, maybe companies is a strong word, like Berserker Works, Bill, he made Mech 28, and he's just basically anything that's a robot that's around 4 inches tall, boom, done, there you go, that's what you use in our game. And he's literally just yeah, I think it's in the text or whatever, it's just around 4 inches tall. Okay, that's a number I can deal with, you know what I mean? So yeah, that makes sense. There are no known Australian hobby towns. Oh, that's a bummer. Maybe Gunpla is a direct relation of the Japanese characters for the contraction? It could be. Yeah. For the person looking for Gundam kits, if you are based in the U.S., look up Gundam Place. Oh. Salon Pa is actually a Japanese product. Oh, so it could be in the same vein. Picked up my Kill Team starter box yesterday. Going to spend today building. Nice. I didn't know what Gundam was last month. Now I see it everywhere. It's been around for a while, but there's that thing where every once all of a sudden you see it and then you see it everywhere. But yeah, no, Gundam's been around for a good long time. Molly, how you doing? Gunpla is just short for Gundam plastic models. Huh. I highly recommend the new Netflix CG animated series Gundam Requiem for Vengeance. I think Vince was talking about that. I like Gundam models, but some like shorting it from Gundam plastic to Gunpla. I like how MechWarrior 5 Clans not using contractions and saying AF for affirmative. I think I saw a video that was the beginning of that, the new MechWarrior 5 Clans. I bought MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries on my PlayStation. I think it's on the PlayStation. And you cannot flip the, I think it's the Y-axis. You cannot invert the Y-axis. There's a thing in the settings where you go, hey, I'd like to do this, please. And it's okay, cool. And it just doesn't do it. And I looked it up and people are yeah, it's just a known bug that they won't fix. I'm cool. I wish I could get my money back. I think I bought it for pretty cheap. It was on sale. Also, it was surprisingly lousy graphics, I thought, which was surprising. But the new one, Clans, I've just only watched on YouTube a little bit. Or maybe Twitch. I just told my son I bought a skirmish game where goblins beat the snot out of each other. He was very pleased. Well, yeah, absolutely. Why not say Gundam? Why include the plastic part? I don't know. I don't know. Well, because a Gundam is a thing, and Gunpla is like Gundam. Like you could be talking about a Gundam and it's in the movie, running around doing Gundam stuff. I don't know what they do. They shoot at each other mostly, I suppose. But Gunpla means you're not talking about a Gundam in a movie. You're talking about building a plastic model based off of a movie or TV show or whatever. I'm assuming. So I'm assuming it's the difference there. You know, this difference between, oh, I like Star Wars or I like Star Wars Legion, you know, or Star Wars Shatterpoint or Star Wars Wargaming, you know, that kind of thing in general, I guess. That's probably the difference there. '87 to '89, I bought several new publisher title comics. Wasteland was one, and the Shadow series, and Outcasts. Huh. I'm in Australia, and I know there are plenty of places in Sydney. I'm sure I'll end up getting stuff there. We have a Warhammer down here this is a Economawalk for me. Wollongong, I think so. When I say Economawalk, Economawalk is a city in Wisconsin that people outside of Wisconsin generally can't pronounce. Thanks to the stream. Have a good day. Absolutely. Oh, goodness gracious. We're a little late, aren't we? All right. Well, there you go. Well, thanks to everybody for coming by. I appreciate it. And if you're interested, if you like goblins or whatever and zines, I mean, you could. I'm just saying. It's currently for sale. You can go to snarlingbadger.com and you'll find links there, which you can then click on and then you'll get the thing. And it's a PDF and you can print it or not. You know, you keep it on your phone or your tablet or whatever you want to do. But yeah. I think the plan is we'll also be talking about it on Wednesday over on Vince's channel during what would normally be Warhammer Weekly, but this week it'll be Goblins Weekly. Argle-Bargle Weekly? I don't know. I'll have to workshop that. But yeah, I hope you folks have a good rest of your day. I hope that, you know, you get some hobby done if you want to, or if you just want to rest, or if you want to, you got to get some other stuff done so you can hobby later. That's also a good thing to get to do. I have to go with my mom to the cell phone store after lunch, so that's going to be a thing. But yeah, so everybody, I hope you have a good week. And if you're interested, on Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Central Time, ? I think that's about right, usually when it is. Yeah, we'll be talking over on Vince's channel as well. So at least I'm 98% sure we are doing that this week. I think so. Although, well, it's either this week or next week. I know he has to go to Italy, so I don't know when that is. I'll find out tonight for sure, because we're going to have a meeting tonight, as we usually do on Sunday nights. Anyway, there we go. So I hope you folks have a good weekend and a good next week and all that kind of stuff, and stay safe, and thanks for watching.